So, hey, this is Thomas Goss welcoming you to the very first of the half dozen longa evaluations from the 2022 Orchestration Challenge. This is really exciting. We're really getting down to the wire here. The last couple days of my evaluations before Christmas, trying to get everything done, and looks like I'm going to get there if I just keep taking my vitamins and drinking my water and breathing nice and steadily. I'm going to get there. So we're starting here with Callum's score, and Callum, it's just really terrific. I mean, I love that fandango rhythm that you put into the big tutti, and this is also lovely, like hitting the hitting the chord hard and then backing off and just letting just a few notes of harmony drift through along with the B octaves, and then also these really, really delicate harmonics here in your lower strings, fading. Now, see, this is a place where I think it's okay to score. I think niente in the harmony parts is good, but I don't think you need to fade down to niente in the double bass. I think you could just put triple P, and actually, you know, you could put triple P in the cello part too, and you get exactly the same effect as fading down to niente. So like if it's a choice between a part that will sound niente anyway, if you mark it triple P, then just mark it triple P, because the thing is that niente really should be something that calls attention to itself for its subtlety, right? So it should be a situation where the ear, the attention of the audience is really directed towards the fading down into nothing. It should be an effect that is exceptional unto itself, right? And the putting it, having it fade out under a cello solo line, you might as well just have it fade down to pianissimo or to triple P, because that's exactly the same thing, right? In this context, there's like nothing about this that in any way would have people saying, "Oh my God, did you notice how those really delicate harmonics in the cello and the double bass, solo double bass, faded down to nothing? Can you believe it?" Right? Nobody's going to say that. So if nobody's going to say that, if there is no wonder to be gotten out of niente under while something else much more important is going on that's not niente, then don't go niente. Just use triple P. It's fine. Now the next question here is like, how much tenuto do you really, really want? Right? I mean, like thinking about what tenuto is for strings and how different it is of an effect for strings than it is for like piano, like the solo piano. Like it's what Barvinsky is asking for is like really well enunciated, like very full toned playing, even though it's soft. So it's just in the context of everything else happening, right? But for a string player, tenuto means to play with a full bow and to not have any nuance to the note. Really, it just starts and stops. Right? It's like pressing a button and you hear a string sound and then you let go and it stops. It's sort of like the old style, mellotron, right? So like, and so to do that, the player is using a faster bow, even on a softer dynamic. So do you really want this sort of zoom, 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 or zoom, 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 play, right? Zoom, 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 play, da, 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 da. If this is going to be slurred, why can't this be slurred? And why can't that be slurred? Like, espressivo, I think, is so much more than just a row of tenutos, right? And then, like, here, it's pretty much just the tenutos imported into the score, right? So it doesn't really, doesn't really make much difference. There are ways of course, changing this around. You could put a slur over your tenuto marks, and then you get portato. So it's sort of like a throbbing kind of a sound. Or you could just leave them out and slur them. Da 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 da. I mean, just so much more expressive just to put a slur on it, don't you think? Okay, so and then also just like in thinking about how you throw in all this subtle stuff here, this little harmonic here, and then the vibraphone arco. Here you say the actual sound played, or sorry, the actual sound of the note. So you're saying like instead of the sound that's written. I think here you could just say like you know pitch sounding maybe. It would be a way of saying it in English. And and like maybe like also like solo ad libitum or ad lib or whatever. Anyway, so but like to get back to what I was talking about, I think that like slurring these groups of melodic notes is so much easier on these subtle effects that you want to bring out here. The bowed vibraphone, right, and bowed glockenspiel. So here you're using, yeah, two players here, two players there, one, and so on. It's a really cool effect. Yeah. Okay. So getting past that, uh, it's a nice way to get to B below middle C. Same note as this, and then you don't add the octave, right? You just add the winds, and that's cool. You're keeping them pianissimo, and then here you're saying piano espressivo. Yeah, sorry. Here you're adding the octave. Sorry, I overlooked that. So yeah, so adding the octave. So here you have solo cello and English horn in octaves. That's a beautiful sound. And yeah, and just here I would just really say, slurring beats tenuto here, and portato I would say, just like a standard slur. It's just so much more expressive. Yeah, and then this is lovely, just adding a little touch of bowed vibraphone, and I mean your effects are really gorgeous, and they don't really interfere with the flow of the flow of the melody and the accompaniment that you've also scored. And this is really lovely too. Da 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 da. Coming in with this, and then everybody, just like it should be. Doloroso. I would mark the Doloroso down here with the expression text. Da da dum. What if it was slurred? Dum dum. But actually, dum cross voice, or actually not cross voicing, but implied leap. Da da da. And this is lovely, right? Yeah, and poco forte diminuendo. I would keep the yeah. Well, I see you're going to a different function here. Yeah. Well, no, it's fine. Just keep the dynamics unified here. Don't let the English horn be louder. And like here, niente. Once again, that's completely unnecessary, right? Because if the ear isn't going to be called to it by by the rest of the arrangement, then it's just pointless. Just diminuendo to triple P. Yeah. Yeah, and this is all really nice in here. The celesta and, da 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 ba da ba da, and so on. This is all nice. And this solo here, gorgeous English horn. About the only thing that I would wonder here is we had a heck of a lot of English horn here. We ended up on this high, soft B. All good, all fine. And now you got more English horn. And more English horn. Right, so it's really almost like an English horn concerto. Yeah. Is there any, like, what if this were clarinet doubling the cello, and then this would be a contrast? Or what if this were clarinet coming in here, right? Or what if you had, like, even like low flute would work fine here because the accompaniment is so soft. So you could put in a flute solo here, and then you could put in like clarinet here as a response. There's a lot you could do, but I think that just continuing to use English horn, it just might be wearing out its welcome, right? You have so much potential for variety and everything else. Yeah, so now we get into this section right in here, and I feel that it's just a little dicey because here you've got, yeah, you've got your A clarinets, right? And, excuse me, and bass clarinet. Yeah, sort of playing that G6 chord down below. So, yeah. Sorry, I keep twitching the screen. Yeah, so my reservation here is that throwing in this harmony here in a clarinet family instrument means that the the bass clarinet solo doesn't flow very freely from the English horn part, right? It just, like, especially just with this harmony in the middle, it just feels kind of blocked up. What if this had been, what if there had been some strings in here expressing this, and then the winds carried on, like the bass clarinet came in here, yeah, to dovetail and then continue forwards. Yeah. But I mean, cool use of a solo cello right in here as a textural instrument. And yeah, and this is all really good. Do 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 do, and all of this stuff in here. All right, so quadruple P, sort of meaning essentially kind of like a niente sound, right? Check out my latest writings on extreme dynamics. Okay, so I would consider quadruple P to be essentially like the niente tone that you get from clarinet and so on. So if this is going to match that, and it can, it's bass clarinet, then mark them the same so that they all play together, and the bass clarinet doesn't stand out. However, like, it just depends on what you really intend here. Think of pianissimo as being extra soft, right? Soft, extra soft. Triple P is as soft as most instruments can play and still be musical, right? So like have complete command of everything to do, inflections, intonation, articulation. There's like nothing disappears because it's too soft, right? It is all completely under control of the player. And then the quadruple P sound is just like really just on the very edge of being heard and creating a tone. And then when you go to quintuple P, that is like basically just more about the sound of the bow sliding across the string than it is actually about creating a tone. Okay, so think about those degrees when you are assigning this. And if you really are serious about this being like a niente tone, then give it to your bass clarinetist too, and I'm sure that they would love to play that in shallow register. It's a fun thing. All right. And yeah, I just really love the way in the mock-up this sort of hangs on. this bowed vibrato just sort of sits in the air, and and continues onwards. It's really, really lovely scoring, Callum. Just so enjoyable, and it's a wonderful epilogue to some fantastic scoring, which we'll take a look at now. But speaking of extreme dynamics, let's check out Section D. It is just so wildly savage. I think you have one part in your score marked brutal, and that it will be brutal. It'll be just insane for those players, but actually really fun. But I'll have some feedback for you on maybe how to manage your dynamics. Maybe you do not need to go quite so loud in order to get those effects. All right, and like taking the scope of the dynamics advisedly, perhaps in the way that I describe, certain standards for extreme dynamics. I think that might also help out a lot. All right, so but we haven't got to that point yet. We're starting off here with these lovely raindrops, these cascading octaves. Now, I don't think you really mean this right here. I think you mean something different, because look at what you're doing. You're saying that you're going to slur over repeated notes and end up here, right? Maybe this is what you mean? Right? Right? So, and it just it's so much easier. Like, down, up, down. It's kind of hard to fit it all into one melodic line with my voice. Down, up, down. Right? So I think that works a whole lot better. Yeah, try not to, like, I don't know why the celesta gets the divided slur, but it's sort of like the reverse. Do you know what I mean? Like this kind of slurring would be better for the celesta, and this kind of slurring would be better for your violins. In fact, you could actually do this kind of bowing on the violins, just going back and forth. So, in fact, the player might decide to reverse it. They might decide to go up and then down, just because the longer down bow, right? I'm thinking, see that works better for me too. I'm sort of imaginary bowing it. Okay, so it's a cool idea here. You've got your cascading octaves represented by violins and celesta and the pizzicato down here, and you're basically doing this as anticipatory pizzicato in the lower strings, and here you are playing it as a sort of a separate thing. It's just like its own solid note. So it all adds together, and it really does simulate the effect of the piano, the sustained low note. Really, really lovely. Especially like pizzicato, sustained note, and then arco. Yeah, right, that's just really, really nice. And I'll have more to say about the way it progresses, but since we're on kind of a half page here, or just 3 bars left to the page, let's just look at everything else. I also like the way that you set this up. Like you've got this progression of melody in instruments here, and then the accompaniment, and the bassoons, and so on, and like the jumping octaves and so on, which I'll have something to say about as well in terms of scoring them. And then you just put the melody, the octave melody, and the thirds into your second violins and violas. That's just really, really nice. It's just wonderful. Like not ending with one texture on the upbeat, going and then just a new one on the downbeat. You're taking the opportunity of the upbeat, right, to play these muted, these muted instruments here. Okay, so that's all cool, and it's it's a direct transcription. In the second violins, what's in the score, and that's all cool. But just to sort of point something out, there's a slightly picky point right here, and that is that here you are achieving an enclosure, right? You've got the octave. You've got your octave seconds here, and then they're enclosing the these notes right in here, and that's sort of like creates the illusion, if you will, of of this being like a major triad, right? So root, mediant, fifth, and then like the octave on top, right? But the truth of this is that it isn't, right? That this is like the chord is actually an F sharp major chord with a 6 in it, the 6 of D sharp, right? So rather, if you put the D sharp on the bottom, right, then what you end up with is a D sharp minor chord, right? So just the positioning of it is a little weird, but when you put the F sharp, these F sharp octaves below, then it's all sort of resolved and forgiven. But still, down here, you're ending up in, like, you end up what is sort of the equivalent of a G sharp minor chord with a G sharp at the bottom, right? So G sharp, B, D sharp, G sharp. So just watch out for those enclosures, all right? There's a reason why Barvinsky's harmonies are set up the way they are. It isn't just an incidental that the thirds are below the octaves. There really is a real point to where it is, the voicing of it, and it makes it more impressionistic and less romantic, right? All right, so now we're going to this page here, and this comes to an end, and then I really love this. You put in like here we got the cello and the English horn working again, right? So I mean, I can see this partnership. You want to keep it going later on, right? When you come back out of this wild thing going on here. Just want to check something here. Yeah. Okay, so about the only problem here. All right. You go to vibraphone here, and you're dropping the octave just like it is in the piano score, right? So, but why is it that way in the piano score? The reason why it is in the piano score, I feel, is because adding this middle voice in the left hand really kind of requires that the focus of the pianist be on the center of the piano. And so dropping the octaves in the right hand facilitates that. And it also gives a nice hand over hand kind of a thing happening right in here. But just because Barvinsky chose to do that doesn't mean that you have to do that. You could have easily kept everything in the celesta and just kept the same basic approach all the way through. However, this is a case, I would say, like not all, or even not many entries that chose to follow Barvinsky's dropping of the octave justified it through a new changed context of the scoring that did not get absorbed so much. So here, like, you are dropping it an octave, you are adding the vibraphone, a little bit stronger of an instrument than celesta, and here you have this sort of echo bassoon right in here, which is softer. So, like, I would say the only big problem is right here. So, like, the warmth of the bassoon is going to interfere with the sound of the vibraphone right in here. I would be tempted to say, look, just mark your vibraphone and your cascading parts up a little bit, and then when this echoes, then just drop them back down a bit, right? And then you'll solve that problem to a degree. But the melody doesn't interfere at all with the cascading octave, so that's good. Bum, 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 da, da. Yeah. Great. And then, once again, on the pickup, you go to your new instrument choices, right? And it's really lovely the way that you scored this out, harmonized, and then it is joined eventually by the winds right in here. And then, clarinets are helping out with the top part of the violins here, and then you've got your horns below. So it's really wonderfully scored. I feel that the color here is beautiful. I would put this right here in your clarinets as well. Okay, and actually, and starting them, I would start all of these just a little bit under. So mezzo forte here, I would say same part, but mezzo piano or even piano in the clarinets, pushing up to the same forte. Now, since you have your horns out of the way here, they're not climbing all over the string parts here. That this top written D is sounding G below the lowest note of the second violins. You don't really need to pull back on your horn scoring. You don't need to score these mezzo forte to the forte of the winds and the strings. Okay, so that's all good. And then you're throwing in your winds right in here. I feel that that's great. You're saving up your English horn. That's also good. And these leaping octaves are really nicely scored across your lower winds and strings. So here we're kind of getting into a place where abbreviation will save you a lot of horizontal space. Okay, and the way that I would do that in Sibelius at least. Let's drag this over here. Okay, so basically just select this, and then turn it into a dotted quarter note. Add this, right? Now, here's the thing about this abbreviation. Try to give your player at least one beat, if not one bar, written out. I would say one beat in this case. Right, so this is all written out, and then here you could just go, or just kind of do this backwards. Right. See, like, it's just save space, right? And then, right in here. And then right in here, like, just select this, turn them into eighth notes, give them a single beam. Some people call this a shake. I like to call it measured tremolo, right? And the same thing can happen here. Here, I'll just do it backwards. Okay, so that is just a huge space saver, if you know what I mean. Yeah, and it just keeps the instrument part from just looking like a minefield of repeated 16th notes, right? And it doesn't have any change on the way that it sounds, the way that it's played, any of that other kind of stuff. Now, getting back to the leaping octaves and so on, I think that works in really, really well with the strings, working with the timpani, and then like going over to the same pitches as the slurred lower wind. So yeah, so it's very cool. Just kind of thinking, if you have two bassoonists, you can do things like having a second bassoon slur up to this pitch, first bassoon slurring back and forth, second bassoon coming in, and just like keeping the octaves from one player to the other. Like there's really no reason why, like, say here you've got pretty much the same thing happening as you have here, and it just makes more sense to go do 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 do. Da, da, as opposed to da, da. I mean, I just feel that this is weird, the way that you have it slurred. This is better, right? So that fits into a scheme of trading off with your bassoonist. So you could just have your second bassoonist play to here. Let's just go over to this. It's easier to demonstrate. So second bassoonist plays this. First bassoonist plays this with the second bassoonist ending here, and then the first bassoonist could play this note, and the second bassoonist could dovetail and play that, and so on. So it's just, I think, splitting it between them rather than doing the triple octave. It just keeps the player centered around a certain area, and I think you get a better effect with the double reed. I think like the bass clarinet doesn't make any difference though. Their registers are really even across all places, and so are bassoons to a degree. It's just it's just nicer to the player to like not send them all over the place all the time, especially when things start to get loud and heat up and get faster and so on and so forth. The player has way more control if you do it that way. Yeah, but just lovely horns and clarinets and upper strings here. I really love it. Yeah, and then like right in here, like with all of these parenthesized notes, just breaking this down to like a quarter note with a, I mean, just to demonstrate, right? Right. So look how clean that is when you're dealing with all of these repeated notes and so on. Anyway, all right. So so now that we've gotten over that previous thing, the sort of the Ravel chords, now we are in this wild area, and I think that you could take things even further than you have. Like here, you got this big space in here where your heavy brass are kind of going and so on. What if the horns played this, and your heavy brass played a version of this, right? And then just swapped between them back and forth, and then everybody came together, even more brutal. Yes. Okay. So let's take it apart in terms of its functions, okay? Starting with the big octave melody, which you have chosen to transcribe to naturals and flats rather than sharps and double sharps. So I would say maintain a consistency. Don't cop out on me here. If you're going to be going G, F, E flat, right, then just maintain the same relationships, right? And change it for, you wanted to simplify things. Well, go ahead and just flip all of the appropriate parts, and just whatever you do, don't score any naturals and sharps together where the natural is actually supposed to be a double sharp. Okay, so if this is supposed to be F double sharp here, then that's what it has to be in the part. You cannot cheat on me. You've got to, like this. Okay, so obviously this is intended to be E flat. If you're going to go with G and B here, and this pitch here, so this has to actually be E flat, and I believe that the B would be a C flat, right? So see, like it's tougher than you think to just and you should just never give like the enharmonic natural when you have got sharps and so on in your part, because it just confuses everything harmonically. Like the conductor will have a really good sense, if they're a great conductor, they'll have a really good sense of what the harmony is here. And if you just give like weird pitches that are kind of arbitrarily going between sharps and flats and so on and so forth, then it's then it just yeah. Yeah, so just try to stay all in the same key. All right, let's just to make it simpler. So if you're going to go this route, then transpose everything, flip everything. Watch out for white key flats, and and change the bass line and everything else. And all it takes is just in Sibelius, just press enter, right? And then you get the opposite pitch, or the opposite enharmonic pitch. Anyhow, so try to do that. Okay, so back to the melody. All right, I will just ignore any enharmonic misspellings. So you've got divisi first violin supported by first flute and piccolo. It's beautifully strong. You have second flute supporting the divisi, the lower divisi first violin and upper divisi second, and and then so on down the line. We've got English horn supporting the lower divisi seconds, and so on. We got these clarinets being enclosed between flute and English horn, second flute and English horn, along with the violas here. And I've been just before I talked about the dangers of an enclosure like that, but I would say, like in this case, if you have so much weight going, that kind of thing, it's probably better to keep things higher, right? Even though some of it is just going to get blasted away by the trumpets. Yeah. Yep. Yep. So the bass instruments look pretty cool. I like the way you push your first violins all the way up to high C sharp. Some orchestrators didn't want to do that, but it is a safe note for good players. Nothing too complicated about it. And and it was kind of cool to have these oboes hammering away at your sort of fandango rhythm. Yeah. And then just little rolls on the timpani, rolls on the bass drum, going back and forth. There's a beautiful effect. And then here coming in with snares and timpani. I think this was really really effective. Big roll in the tam tam, and like right here, like how long do you want the tam tam to last, right? If you want it to last the entire bar and hang over, then that's what it will do. Just put in a whole note with the incomplete slur. Yeah, I almost feel like there's LV and there isn't LV, right? So you can have LV on a shorter note, and of course, like the implication is like leave it alone and let it just sit there. But I've actually seen players like percussionists just after a couple of beats have gone by, they damp it unconsciously, or they have something else coming up, so they damp it and then they move on to the other instrument. So it's almost like saying, well, the dotted quarter note lasted for a couple more beats than it normally would have, so like I'm going to go on to the next thing. But I just feel like decide how much you would want the longest time value to be up to the end of the bar, and then if it goes past there, like just mark how long it's going to be, and then if it goes past that, then give the incomplete tie. And I think that really brings home the fact that you really want that pitch to just last and last and last. Okay, so just I would say make these longer, and I just feel that a football with a dot and a long tie on it says so much more than this. And what says the most to me is when you know exactly how long you want it to last, and then you just mark that value. Okay, that's the best of all to me. All right, and then we got some more stuff happening here. Bass drum, tam tam, pushing. It's like really very Rite of Springish, right? And then we got the. Okay, so why do we have a trill mark over our snare drum? Like, you've been so good so far, Callum. Why not just have, what just really looks clean here? Oops. Sorry about that. Is, Sorry about that. It's like, why is that, Sibelius? So silly. All right. See, this is way, way cleaner. And the reason why is that I just knew that the page was going to jump again. I mean, it's ridiculous. I've got an object selected on this page, and I ask Sibelius to to click itself into place with the Command 0 keystroke, and then it jumps to a page, a higher page. And it's just silly. But anyways, the thing about it is horizontal information, things that take up space horizontally, like really, really, really long crescendo marks, poco poco crescendo with a long dashed line after it, stuff like that. It's just more stuff for the eye to look at, right? Whereas if you just take this away and you have this right in here, then it's just way cleaner and just less stuff to look at, and is extremely clear. And look at that. It's just so silly. Come on, Sibelius. It's just really silly. Anyway, sorry. Oh, just so silly. Okay. All right. So consider using the tremolo mark, the triple beam tremolo mark, instead of the trill mark as your roll, because the trills are really old. They're really old-fashioned. They kind of go back to the beginning of the classical period, and they're not necessarily. I mean, they're just more stuff to look at when it's much more precise that it is a tremolo rather than a trill. Okay, so here's the thing. You end up getting all the way up to quadruple forte, right? And that is from fortissimo sempre in all your parts here, right? And you're saying like even more brutal here. And then poco poco crescendo, inexorable, I believe, yes. And then you get to quadruple forte. All right, so here's the thing about quadruple forte, okay? Let's go back to my philosophy of extreme dynamics. So everything I said about pianissimo is the same in the other direction. So forte is loud, fortissimo is extra loud, triple forte is as loud as a player can play and still have complete command musically, like control of nuances, complete control of intonation, and tone color, and all those other things. Articulation. So it's pushed to the limit, but it's still all there, right? Now quadruple forte is as loud as people can play non-musically, right? Where things are so loud that they're almost starting to fall apart. Okay? I don't think that this piece of music, as beautiful and terrific as your tutti here, necessarily justifies going to that place where their musicians are almost screaming inarticulately, right? So that's the next step, is quintuple forte, 5 F signs in a row, is just basically screaming, right? It's like it's so loud that we're losing, we lost. It's just it is just making a noise. So yeah, I just think that you really are pushing your audience to the limit. Here's a thought. Yeah, looking at all this. Just going back to here. What if you kept your brass under a little bit, right? I said that you didn't have to before. What if your horns come in piano, crescendo to mezzo forte, and they just stay out of the way? Nice warm center, but still they can still be heard. They still are a great companion to the winds and thereby the strings and so on. Okay? Now, getting into this place, they are forte, with some accents and articulations and so on. You have some nice back and forth, maybe. But, forte to the fortissimo of the other players. And then just keep that balance going. All right? And then push everybody up to triple forte here in winds and strings and get to fortissimo for your brass, right? I think that is all you need to do there. I don't think you need to go quite so intense with your dynamics. And that might be what the players end up playing anyways, right? All right, so but just looking at the functions, I like the way that that you have scored the melody across these instruments. And then going on to the next page, you sort of keep the same relationships, more or less. Yeah, here, yeah, and then here, like everybody digs in. I really, really love the positions of all of these melody notes here. And like, notice some people who were also working on this section when I was talking about bringing in more melody here, even though the player wouldn't continue to hold a note, they just go da 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 dum, and then go back to chunk 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 chunk, right? All right. And then I'll reiterate. I think you can swap functions in repeated chords, and I noticed that you've really simplified the the curve, the arc of the phrasing right in here. You really don't need to have gaps here, right? That's just something because of the pianist. You could just go chun 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 da 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 da. You know what I mean? It just, you don't have to stop there. You don't have to have a gap. Yeah, and then bassoon kind of playing over some of the pitches that were in the original left-hand part. Um, you know, Sometimes supporting what's in the trombone, and yeah, but yeah, it's all doubled. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool scoring. I'm just kind of wondering whether or not you can temper this, not send it up to almost a scream, and also like maybe build your texture a little bit to where this is incredibly powerful right here at the end, and it is setting this up like in a way that has been, sort of almost, it has been reached, has been arrived there step by step, rather than more or less having all of the functions set from the beginning of the page, more or less, right? So most of these functions were set from the beginning, right? So, like, where's the surprise for the audience if we do that, right? Wouldn't it be better to have some kind of progression of the texture that's more than just the, different elements of percussion being brought to bear? So yeah, so I would challenge you to do that, but otherwise I would just like, there's no huge problem here with the scoring. Now back to the beginning. Beautiful, delicate orchestration in here. I really don't have any problems with this. Like here you're saying, like the real sound. In other words, the sound, basically the pitch sounding. In other words, would be the way to score this, rather than the pitch played. And yeah, I mean that's just something that Sibelius does, which at this point it's baked in to the point where I've had some people tell me, well, that actually makes sense because of XYZ, but I mean, look, guys, just I feel it should be set to sound an octave higher, all right? Just the way that celesta is set to sound an octave higher than the written pitches, or piccolo is set to sound an octave higher. The the harmonics should be set to sound an octave higher. And if people don't get it, who are beginning users, they soon will, right? I would rather have that problem of the problem of learning why and everything be the thing that's baked into it, rather than to have actual sounds being baked into it, to the point where people are saying, oh, we shouldn't change it. Yeah, we should change it. Anyway, this is very cool. It's almost a celesta, like a celesta solo. The celesta playing the, like starting off the melody note, and then which you see here in the first oboe, and then going forward with these thirds and so on of the harmony. I mean, it's really a lovely idea. It puts the harmony right up against the oboe rather than far below it. But the effect of that is to just keep all of those overtones as high as possible. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, lovely, artificial and natural harmonics in these parts, and bowed bell, like bell sounding instruments, vibraphone and glockenspiel and so on. Yeah, so cool. So yeah, so I have really no problems with this introduction here. Where we get into problems here is like giving us bowing marks. Like you don't need to worry about you don't need to overdo it here. Everybody is going to think, any string player worth their salt is going to know that this is an up bow. So that's out. You don't need to put that in. And then as to getting like an extra little dig here, like trying to like make it really, very subtle staccato. There's a couple issues to that. First is, do you really want that? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you want the staccato to be so subtle that like maybe you don't even notice it, right? And it almost just sounds like one long note. A. B. You don't need to do the double staple here. Okay. I think that you don't need to mark any bowings at all. I think the player will just completely get that it's supposed to be as smooth as possible. It's the kind of thing where, like, you might put in all these markings, and then you get to rehearsal, and it's sounding absolutely great. Wow, you aren't paying any attention to the first violins, but wow, boy, does it sound good. All right, and then you go over and you look at those two soli divisi, not solo divisi, soli divisi players, and you notice that they're going down and then a quick little up bow and then down, and they're slurring across here, and then they're playing this as an up bow. And then you have to make the decision, well, do I raise my hand and say, no, I'd really like them to do it the way that I scored it, and just, waste $75 worth of rehearsal time? Or do you just let the players do what they need to do? And what I recommend is let the players do what they need to do and get rid of the bowing markings. All right, they will find a way to make this absolutely beautiful and smooth and give you that little lift and everything else. Okay? All right. Yeah. Da, 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 da. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Da 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 da. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's all fine. It's all perfect. Yeah, very cool. It's kind of strange. Your celesta has got some problems here. Now, why am I not able to drag? Is it because of divisi? You might have your staves locked or something, but the staff line should be following the grand staff brace, right? So, yeah, I'm not sure. It could be. Is it just because of the sizing here? Yeah. It's strange. Very strange. Okay. Yeah, and then like making the inner parts into a celesta solo right in here, with kind of alternating between open and like it's just a plain open string and a octave harmonic. That's really kind of a cool idea. I seem to remember experimenting with this when I was a wee little thing, a teenage violinist in the school orchestra, and I think I remember that the harmonic wants to hang on, like when you let go of it, and like the tapping starts to sort of make its own sort of a noise, But yeah, I'll leave that to the experts. Yeah, that's just really lovely right in there. So no big problems with this first page. All right, and then like, if there's anything that I would say about this is that like you have 8 bars here, and it pretty much is the same approach all the way through, without any little details, without any little touches like you have in the rest of the piece. You know, you've got all these little touches and asides and inflections and all kinds of cool little things. I'm thinking you could have put some of that in here. Now, having said all of that, does it work? Yeah, it works pretty good. Here you've got your octaves stacked on top of the thirds, and so there's no enclosures. That works really, really well. And then you've got the clarinets coming in, playing those harmony parts down another octave, and so on. The bass clarinet down here giving a little bit of firmness to the idea of the pedal D, like sort of almost like a sustained note. Just really smart scoring here. And the clarinet and bassoon sort of supplementing with the patterned notes, right? Just becoming more and more, kind of working their way into the texture more and more as a firmer element. And once again, try to abbreviate these. This could be a quarter note with the 16th note slashes on it, and so on. Yeah, but I mean, no problems here. I could say. I mean, you might make some of your slurs longer in your wind parts here. Yeah. But, no big issues. Right, and then here, once again, you're coming in with a color change on the pickup. Yeah, and then here we get it at B. Bum, bum, bum. It's really nice. Yeah, and then I just love the echo. It just beautifully sets this up. I've got to say, Callum, this is just one of the strongest parts in the whole piece. Like, here's what I was talking about. Your little touches, your little bits and pieces. See, I think that some of that could have been on the previous page. Obviously, not these. Not in that context. In whatever context of the previous page would be original and striking and so on. Yeah. This is lovely. I love the fade out here. I love the change to soltasto with the horns coming in at pianissimo. It's just really, really well done, Callum. Just excellent, excellent scoring. And then here, triple P, right? Like right at the edge of what's musical. And then coming in here. Yeah, so what's the dynamic here? I know that you're sort of trying to have the clarinetist pick up the context, the dynamic through the context. But give them more, more of a guide here than to say that they're supposed to be pure and delicate, right? Cadenza, I think you misspelled that. Condezza, oh yeah, I see. I still think you're trying to say cadenza here. Okay. All right, and like this is completely unnecessary. Just put in the pedal mark. Just write these notes without the ties and just put in a pedal mark. In fact, put in pedal with all of your celesta scoring wherever it's needed. Okay? And the same thing would be true of your vibraphone. I'm kind of much more impressed with the long tie rather than the little LV tie, because the little LV tie is so small, and when you've got especially when you have a dot here, it just looks weird. I'm more impressed with the long tie. So my only thoughts about this is that you're really giving the clarinetist all of the juicy solos. Is there a different instrument that could have been playing this instead, like flute, or I guess not flute, starting that low, but is there an alternative to this? Yeah, and then I mean I've raise some objections about people adding harmonic context in this bar rating here, which should just be all about just the wandering sound of being allowed to wander without too much guidance from below. But I'll just leave it alone here because of the context of your scoring is just it makes it unnecessary really to raise any issues. Yeah. I mean, it's really, really beautiful. I just wonder if there could have been an alternate voice here. And I don't feel that these opening notes set up the clarinet very well. I think that something in the that leads up to it in its to and ends up in its register besides harp, which is going to be the glistening from the celesta here is going to basically wallpaper over the harp, so that the harp's connection here to the carrying on the solo with the clarinet here is just the effect is going to be lost, I feel. So like it doesn't necessarily connect. Like just the same thing here. I'm wondering if this really connects that well to the solo viola in here. Yeah, look, you completely don't need to do this with the harp. Just mark how long you want it to last. This will last the rest of the bar. Just write in a dotted half note. Yeah, people are just, yeah, look, just write how long you want it to sound. Okay? All right. So, ma sempre ben articulato. Okay, so what have you just said? Preciso, right? Oops. I think it's sort of kind of the same thing. All right. Yeah, so this is all going to work together. I don't think you need to do too much to it. Now, here's a situation where I would probably not use abbreviations so much. I think that this is fine, the way that it's scored. Even this. I wouldn't mess around with it and add but I've been telling you to abbreviate things with the slash marks. Maybe down here, but like up here, this is fine. The way that this is scored, it's all good. And this is a lovely idea. English horn playing octaves with the solo cello again. So you've got those partners established and everything with the bassoons below. I have the feeling that right in here, the bassoons get a little warm, and you're not telling anybody like how big of a crescendo you want. Right, you're completely leaving it up to the players, so they might need a little bit more guidance. Where does the crescendo go to? Does it stop here, or does it get all the way to here and then diminuendo? And then just right on this downbeat, you should be telling everybody how loud they got. Right, so what, to mezzo forte or just piano, or what's going on here? You got to clarify. Yeah, but I mean, otherwise, I mean, it's like, once again, like here's a passage where like your usual tendencies to decorate things with a little nuance here and a little line there and a little twinkle there, it's somewhat absent right in there. So maybe you didn't quite get a chance to finish this up or something. So anyways, think about that passage and the passage before B, I think. Yeah. And see what more you could bring into them. Okay. But all that aside, it's really a lovely score, and it was one of the first entries that I got. And it's such a shame that according to the way that this is organized, you had to wait so long to hear my evaluation of your score. And I'm just wondering if there's something I can do to change that in the next round. I might just do first come, first served across all levels of entering, or maybe I'll do like a kind of a combination between, like there'll be like people will get to hear their evaluations a little earlier in the timeline if they have submitted them earlier in the timeline. Anyway, those are my thoughts on your score, Callum. And once again, like I'm so grateful for your support on Patreon and your presence in the group. I know you were a little bit more involved with it back when you did this articulation and the months before and so on, and you came in with a lot of enthusiasm and just you really got the group vibe and the and everything else, and you had some great feedback for me, and that's all appreciated. But I mean, so much the more that you were able to channel that into helping me with that appeal for those Ukrainian musicians who are, like nothing is getting resolved, and they're still in a lot of need. So I really appreciate your help with this. That really meant a lot. And, to all my other supporters out there on Patreon who helped out, and my website subscribers who chipped in on their own and spread the word about it, along with the other viewers, hugely appreciated. Really, I mean, like, this is the part of the video where I sort of thank everybody, and I never stop getting tired of saying it because it is a daily moment of astonishment to me that the resources that I'm creating are worth your support, and I just try to live up to that. Every time I post something, every time I organize my time to make more content for you. So thanks everybody. Just you guys are just really keeping me going here and helping define what I do with your support and your enthusiasm and your requests for more. So speaking of which, there will be one more release today, and then there will be one more day of releases the day after that, and then I'm taking a holiday. Thanks everybody. See you really soon.